Hello, friends. Welcome back to Page Two, and welcome to the Friday conversation. We have a special guest this week, Andrew Rubin, the author of Hell or High Winter. And I had to be careful not to misspeak the title. But Andrew, how are you going? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, if you said a hell or high water, I would not have been shocked. It's been I've realized how much I've had to. I have personally now in my head switched it to hell or high winter. But yes, hell or high winter. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to join you today.
Yeah, thanks for making time. I love to talk about all the things involved in writing and of creating and everything that there's a lot that goes into it. I'm sure we'll get to all that. But to start off, tell us about Hell or High Winter.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun to write. It's was a long time getting to a published book. It's a contemporary urban fantasy mythological retelling. I my way into the mythology, and what this book is about is a retelling of Hermes and Persephone in present day, and the story centers around Hermes, who is doing what a trickster god would do in the 21st century without anyone worshiping him, which is just screwing around and pissing off the other religions that he is very jealous of. And all that's going fine and good until his sister Persephone is kidnapped. And that's the second time she's been kidnapped. And Earth plunges into eternal winter. And so he is called back into service and sent into the underworld to find her and bring her back. And so it's, Hermes finding his purpose again in a world where he has lost his way. Um,
Huh.
so yeah, that's Hell or High Winter, a little bit in a nutshell there. And lots of other mythologies and everything come into play, and had a lot of fun writing it.
Yeah, I always am nervous asking that question. Give us the pitch for it because it's hard to describe a whole book in 15, 20 seconds. But um,
Oh,
why did you pick mythological creatures?
I've always loved mythology. I've loved world mythologies and history, and it actually came about from my background in screenwriting, and
Hmm.
was actually a fun kind of game I was playing with my brother, kind of a Mad Libs of storytelling, and um, the myth of Hermes and Persephone popped into my head from that because I've always loved it, and the Greeks are just they're masters of storytelling, and their version of the gods are messy, which is what I love most about them. They're not on a pedestal, even though they live on Mount Olympus. They are constantly a comedy of errors or tragedy of errors, and it felt like a perfect myth that you could bring into the present day. And I just had so much fun exploring once I started shifting of like, what would it be for them to be struggling to exist in the 21st century? Uh, and 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 what would happen if Persephone was kidnapped again? And how would the messenger of the gods fare in the age of email and instant messaging and all of that? Um, and it turns out not much better than the rest of us. So, what's it like if a god has to get on a dating app? Um, so that's for book two. But yeah.
Nice. How many books are planned for the series?
Um, I I like to call it the Holy Trilogy. So I have planned three books. I'm almost finished writing the sequel, Hell or High Spring. Obviously, I'd love to go through the four seasons, so it'd be more than a trilogy. But I have it mapped out through the end of three books as one coherent, full finished story to completion.
Hmm. And were you nervous including mythological creatures in your story? Was it a lot of pressure to get them right or to be accurate to certain kind of their personalities in mythology?
Um, Funny enough, no, it almost felt liberating. I mean, yes,
Hmm.
there's a lot of the research, and there was a lot of research that I did. Um, but I'd be very frightened if any actual real scholars of mythology read my book, and I even apologized to them at the end. I take a lot of liberties, but it's grounded in the research that I've done and my love of all the myths from every culture. I think they're both right for comedy, but they're also beautiful stories. Um, so, and when I say that didn't feel as much pressure in writing them, it, in some sense, they're artistic stories. They are uh, they're always changing and they're always evolving. And I think because I've read so many different stories that incorporate these characters, it felt like there's a certain license that we have to tell them in our own way for our own time. I mean, that's how they all pass down generation to generation, anyways. So, I think there is a place for them to be held in reverence and to be treated with a sense of scholarly, um, well, the scholarly reverence of them. But then I think in a creative sense, I sort of had so much fun taking them as a launching pad for something new. So, um, I think, yeah, I felt a lot of freedom in writing with them because you can also do things that you can't do with real people as well. So you get a
Sure,
little
yeah.
bit more flexibility just in sort of a story sense.
In doing your research for the different personalities and different traits, what was the most surprising or interesting thing that you learned during your research?
That's a good question. I think it's not. I don't think I can pull out a factoid. I'm also buried under the research for the second book, which I bit off more than I can chew. But I think what um, a lot more. So I'm sort of like, if you ask me for one specific thing, my brain feels like it will implode from all the different things that I'm reading on different mythologies right now. But what what I think I fell in love with in that surprised me is sort of the depth of the relationships. We have,
Hmm.
the goddess Persephone and the god Hermes, and I sort of loved um, exploring when went down the rabbit hole of their children and their offspring and how they came to be. Um, and even Hermes, even in one of the Homeric hymns, there's a reference to him being seen as a boy, and so the idea of so sorry, there's two elements that I'm sort of wrestling between. One that was surprising was the relationships to their children and being able to explore those from a character dimension. And then the other thing was sort of some of the perceptions that we have of the gods and what happens if they were to turn around and have those, if those were their comments and reviews, so to speak, how would they feel about how the world perceives them? So whether it's Hades feeling slighted and aligned, and misinterpreted throughout the ages as some horrible, evil person, or Hermes being seen as just a messenger and a boy. Um, and then for Persephone, I really got fascinated by her daughter Melano, a name I'm probably horribly mispronouncing. Um, and someone teased me, why did I write books about gods and world mythology when I'm the worst at pronouncing names? Uh, and the Furies too, and the surprises of the dynamics between them.
Hmm. Seems like a lot to research, but and to include. But so on the reviews that I've read for the book, there's lots of people praising the comedy aspects, or the comedic portion of the book, and I wondered, comedy is so dependent on timing, and I'm sure you can elaborate more on that when we get to your screenwriting experience. But so much of it is based on timing and knowing the right times to insert the comedy. Do you have a certain way of doing that when you write your stories?
I think it, as far as like a rhythmic part of it, I don't know if I necessarily have. I feel like it's a matter of the situation, and also it's a matter of people taking themselves too seriously, and that's sort of what happened. I mean, religions are just ripe. They're funny. They're if you just sort of examine them on their own and just or if you just allow yourself to have fun as you look at them and how we interact with religions. But in terms of the comedy itself, I sort of would find myself writing and getting into the antiquity and the self seriousness of the religions, and then it was almost a matter of habit where I would then feel like I have to pull back and make fun of myself. And so it was sort of whenever I found myself getting too serious with the material, then I found I would have to just undercut myself. So I don't know what that says about my own self esteem. So it's like I couldn't take myself too seriously, and every time I found myself writing in sort of this grandiose way, it felt fun to just undercut it. And so then that sort of happened. And then there's also just the idea of the situations that these gods are in and putting them in our own present day world. And I think a lot of comedy to me comes from people who are trying really hard. Um, and uh, yeah, I'm always afraid of the whole comedy label. I feel like if anyone, I'd rather not try to be funny and people say that I am or the writing is than rather than go out there and be a stand-up comedian and not hear any laughs. So
Yeah, it's typically the kind of comedy I go for is just the kind of ironic mixed in the story at the right moments, especially in literature. I have a hard time reading comedy if something is just strictly comedy. I have a hard time getting into it. If it's just interwoven in the story and it's part of the story, it's different. But
yeah,
so it's tough.
I'm not a fan of anything that's one note. If it's just one, I love Simon Rich, and I was so thrilled that he read the book and gave a comment that he did. I think he's brilliant, and his works like Glory Days and all of those books are just comedic gold. Um, but I also was deeply inspired by The Magicians and Lev Grossman.
Hmm.
And to me, those books were hilarious. They were also very cutting and edgy. And I grew up loving Harry Potter and then reading those books that sort of took that world and made it feel very much of the life that I lived. And I thought, well, there's a tone, there's a voice, and that's what helped me get into the tone for for Hell or High Winter.
Hmm. And you mentioned your past experience in screenwriting and getting into publishing a book. What was the experience like when you decided to publish a book? You decided to write the story to publish the book. What was that journey like? Because it seems like everyone has a different journey from writing the story to having the book being published. I mean, walk us through that, just kind of what your experience was like and what surprised you along the way.
I mean, I absolutely love the process of working with an editor. That surprised me more than anything. I thought
Hmm.
it was going to be grueling and I was going to be so intimidated by it. I've worked, God, I want to say over 15 years with different producers and people in LA. I've been in the trenches of Hollywood development, which is fun, but very not fun. And lots of heartbreak, a lot of heartbreak. Um, that could be a different conversation or therapy. And and so when I got to Hollywood, I also I also help teach for the Veterans Writing Program at the Writers Guild Foundation, and you get this question a lot. And when we prepare people in screenwriting, we say your script it's a fire hydrant. It's a fire hydrant for everyone to pee on, and you just have to
Hmm.
get used to that. And you're a craftsman, and your job is to after you finish the first draft, that's the most ownership you'll ever have on your work. And then it has to be appeasing and appealing to everybody else. And everybody's opinion somehow matters more than yours. And the game is to try to make sure you protect your own creative core and the North Star that you had when you started this project, if it was your own spec. If nobody knows what a spec is, that's like your own speculative script that you write your own story. And so I went into doing the process of when Rarebird picked up the book and wanted to publish it, and I was going to work with Guy, my editor, who is amazing. He's awesome and hilarious, and I couldn't have thought of a better person to work with. I was sort of like, oh my god, this is just going to be, because I had over 400 pages, and I thought this is just going to be an avalanche of notes like screenwriting, and it's going to be endless. Um, and I don't know where I'll end up or where the story will end up. And the process was, it was such, it was, the editor guy came in and it was like, how do we get your story in the best shape possible to tell your story versus to to appease everybody else in that process. And it was nuanced, and it was, you got to dig into who these characters are and what you're trying to do in a scene, and then also just the technical parts of writing, and like, you know, crafting and making sure the craft of it, like the point of view of a character, like make sure that is present in every chapter, every scene, and whose point of view, and how we make sure that we amplify that. And so
Mm.
there was these wonderful and hilarious conversations, and and then, you know, we went through like 2 rounds, and then I freaked out because I got his notes on on another round, and there wasn't that many, and I was like, oh no, he doesn't like it anymore. He's not interested. And and it was very funny because he's like, no, he's like, I run into this problem with screenwriters. He's like, we actually have to finish it. Like this is not just endless development. Like we have a product. It moves forward.
Mm.
You know, we did what we needed to do. We're not just going to endlessly rewrite for the sake of rewriting. And that level of respect for the words on the page and for the story that you're telling was like rev revelatory for me. I was like, "Wow, wow, novel." It's so it was a breath of fresh air. Um,
Which skills, which writing skills from screenwriting did you use moving over to the book, that you were surprised with, that would you just kind of moved right over and were ready to go?
yeah, and there's a lot of skills that aren't easily transferable, and it's a whole new language that you're learning in writing prose in a novel versus a screenplay. But there was a lot of things that were really helpful from the years and years of screenwriting, and one is outlining. It's huge in screenwriting. You cannot write a script unless you're outlining it. You can't just wing it. So structure is massive.
Hmm.
And I outline this book and every single one that I'm now working on as if it's a screenplay. So I write the outline as if I'm writing a script. And
Hmm.
in all the years of screenwriting and working with producers that have done amazing, huge films, a lot of studio movies, it's so structure dependent, and the guardrails that come with that. And so that really helps keeping a story moving. And I hope that people find that this book is fast paced and moves, that has the same impulsion as a movie. Since that's sort of my language and cinema, as much as I read and devour books and love reading. Um, so that element really transferred over. I've read so many books where it just loses the thread of the plot, and then I'm
Hmm.
like, it just ends, and I probably shouldn't name those books where I get frustrated by them, and I'm invested. And part of that also comes from a lot, a lot of the things I've done in screenwriting. I've been on a lot of book adaptation. That's how I got in the Writers
Hmm.
Guild. And so when you're doing a book adaptation, I actually like have to reverse engineer the book. And this was before I wrote a novel, so I would take the book that I'm adapting for a company, producer, whatever, and I would outline the book. I would literally go in chapter by chapter, summarize it, and go reverse engineer it as an outline, and then retake that outline to make the movie version of it. And
Hmm.
so much of the time there's like plot holes and character holes, and I don't know, maybe there's people reading my book going, it's all in yours too. So, but I hope not. Um, but that was a skill that made it helped me because I always knew where I'm going with the book. Not that it doesn't have room to branch off and explore, and that's one of the freedoms and differences that a book allows that versus a screenplay is
Hmm.
that breathing room. But yeah. that was the main transferable skill, I think.
It's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah, because I know everyone has a different process, but it seems like having that foundation is really helpful to know where you're going and to have a pathway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword too. On the script side, it's very constrictive, and you get one read, and people will usually stop reading after the first like 5 pages, 10 pages, and you have to hit that inciting incident by page 15. As much as it frustrates you, I've been in a meeting with a manager once, and it was her and her staff were there, and they were reading one of the scripts, and they were like, this is really great and we'd like to take you on, but your inciting incident happens on page 17, and so we need to cut out 2 to 3 pages to make sure it happens on 14 or 15. And you're like, oh my
Wow.
god.
Really?
Not that that's everyone, but it's such a rules based system. um
Wow.
it helps when you're trying to get into rhythms and you know what's missing and what's not, but then you're like, you see a lot of generic movies and you kind of get to see why after a while. um you got to hit that midpoint emotional beat, you got to get your
Hmm.
third act low point. Make it's there's no room, everything has to be this compression, constant like at the minimal amount on a page as possible so that you can keep people reading.
Wow. That is insane. Did you have to move it back to page 14 or 15? Did you actually have to do that?
Oh, no, I didn't. That was my like, "No, this isn't gonna be a good fit for me."
Oh, okay. Probably the best
Maybe
decision.
maybe if I had, that movie, my screenwriting career would be further along. I don't.
With your screenwriting career, have you worked on anything that uh, we would or anything that you worked on that was you're most proud of?
Oh, I mean, that's the thing about screenwriting. You're most proud of each script you write, and then you're forced to just move on to the next one as quickly as possible. As I work with this wonderful director in Europe, and he had the best phrase. He's like, "I just want to fail quicker." Because it's just failure is so slow in Hollywood. So my New Year's resolution is to fail quickly, and I was like, I love that. That is exactly the problem with Hollywood. You fail too slowly. I love all the stories, and it's like I want to turn all of them into books because there's something
Mhm.
so satisfying about seeing something come to life and actually have it in people's hands. Which I and it's not just. I mean, I there's all of my peers. We all work on project after project, year after year, decade after decade, and you're lucky if you get one movie made in your career. Um, and
Wow.
And so, yeah, there's so many that I was really proud of and I love. I was able to do an adaptation for a company for the island of Dr. Moreau, and that
Hmm.
was that was so much fun. Um, and I mourn that project with all the other ones. So,
It sounds like writing your novel was a lot more freedom to do kind of what you wanted to do, and although you had the feedback from the editor, you still had kind of the controls. I guess you had the control of the steering wheel to know where you wanted to go.
yeah, it was supportive in, and again, so much in, just if we're talking about comparisons to the screenwriting world and the novel world. um, the script is just a vehicle to get other people attached. It's a frustrating process
Mhm.
because nothing happens without the script, and you would think that there would be this level of exaltation of vault, like the writer would be so important, but they're not. They're they're the least important, at least on the feature side.
Hmm.
So the script is always okay. How do you make the script to get an executive interested? How do you make a
Mm.
pivot it in a way that a producer will come onto it, and then the producer is going to give you notes, and you change everything, and then you need to pivot it so that an actor will get interested. And how do you write it so X actor will be interested? And so it's this constant, like you're clinging to the fidelity of the story. Like, how do I make sure I preserve why I love this project to begin with? And then on the novel side, um, and I hope I'm not repeating myself here, but yeah, that was the difference in working with an editor, was this idea of, okay, I know this is your story. It's yours. And like, let's make sure you, you tell it in the best possible way. Let's make
Mm.
sure it's clear. Let's make sure the themes that you're wrestling with come through. Let's close any loops and characters that, I developed in working with the editor. There was, I went back to kind of explore this sequence of memories from Hermes. And that was fascinating to from discussions with him, to be like, what if he's misremembering his relationship with Persephone, and he thought he was the hero, and by the end of the story, he realizes how callous he was. So it became a really wonderful way of book bookending his own transformation in the book. And again, all that was not from a, let's change your story so that it's too expensive, and you wrote a $15 million movie and we're only going to make it for 3 if we can get the financing. And in that, none of that comes in. It's just the story. That's the only thing that matters.
It's funny hearing you talk about screenwriting and the process to even get something made. But as a just a viewer, I don't know the ins and outs, but we hear so much about big budgets and hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on a movie, and it's so there's so much that goes on that we probably don't hear about. That never gets made, which is sad.
It is. I talk a lot with my screenwriting friends and TV writing friends about how we wish we could find some, and there's a lot of that. Just even at the Writers Guild this week, there was just an end of the year sort of group therapy session that was done. so, and it was just this idea of having agency over your work, and how can you get these stories out in another way, because Hollywood is in such an existential crisis right now, but there's so few things that go through the pipeline, and there's going to be so many fewer stories that get told from consolidation problems, and um, many of the other problems that I'm not qualified enough to talk about. But yeah, there's like a real hunger of everyone pours the same energy that like took me into this novel, you have behind every one of your stories. And so to just see them just vanish, and then every movie that gets made is literally a miracle. It's like a 5 to 10 year process behind every
Wow.
movie. That movie is the tip of a very giant iceberg to get it there. The best quote I was told from my mentor when I was started screenwriting, that a movie only gets made when no one can figure out how to stop it. And that's so true.
Lots of bad movies out there. But from having that experience of writing so many stories and being invested in and not seeing it come to life, what was it like for you to go through the process of Hell or High Winter and then actually see it be published? What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was um I sort of was running one thing to the next, and sort of, okay, I'm writing the second one, I'm into that one. I'm marketing, 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 marketing. You have to get it out there, get it out there.
Yeah.
And then there is that moment when you actually hold something that you've written for the first time. Um, and that was humbling and very, very powerful and touching for me. Just knowing that other people got to read my work, and there was nothing else I needed to do. I mean, sure, I can go and I can open it up and want to fix 1,000 things in there or change things for my own OCD reasons, but but the idea that it's done, like, okay, it's out in the world, is it's yeah, it for someone who spends their time writing, that's where the words fail. It's this idea that, okay, I can actually have other people, and that's surreal, holding the book. I had someone in Japan sent me a
Mm.
photo of it, on this, like, that she brought it back home with her, and I'm like, "Oh my god," it's like, "Okay, it's out there. Something's out there." That's really special.
That must be a great feeling to see your creation be read by other people and to see it out in the world. one of the other authors I've talked to, Richard Nell, he told me one time that writing a book and releasing a book is almost like telling a joke and then waiting a year for the applause.
That's I'm like wondering when is that waiting for the applause when he finishes the book or from
Or
when
when
it's
people read it
released
and
when
review
read
it,
it?
and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, good. So then I'm right on schedule because I'm like, does anybody like this book? I don't know. I think I'm in the doldrums right now of that. So, so
it must be nerve wracking to have it out there and want feedback, and then it takes a while for people to buy it and people to read it and write a review, and so it's must be that would drive me. I'd be clicking refresh on the review sites every 5 seconds.
oh, I am. I am.
Yeah.
And that Amazon ticker of like where your book is, that is not helpful. That's the worst thing ever invented. Obviously they're very smart, but for the author there, I've never yeah, it's like a daily update to your popularity contest. You know, um, yeah. And then Eric Trump is number one. You know?
Oh, yeah. That's a good feeling, right?
Well, I think there's like warehouses with books that they bought themselves, probably. So,
Probably,
and
yeah,
oh, maybe
probably.
allegedly, I should say allegedly. So,
Yeah, we don't wanna get sued.
knows.
Yeah,
Maybe take that out.
yeah. We'll do some edits and make sure that we're not, we don't have any letters in the mail after, but allegedly, there's
Allegedly.
warehouses. Yeah. Yeah, it's, just the but no, it must be a great feeling to have the book out and in people's hands, and I think a lot of authors who are new, who are getting involved in writing, they find other authors for help, and we had mentioned before we started recording about other writing groups that you had joined and kind of how much they helped you. How did you find the groups or the group?
Yeah, I've been a part of a lot of writing groups, and that's kind of always an interesting dynamics. It's, I guess, like book clubs and those other things. There's a lot of inner working politics, and but for anyone writing, I think the first thing they should do is get into a writers group.
Hmm.
And just the author community in general has been amazing. They're so supportive. You can email people to do a blurb, and everyone's just trying to share resources and be helpful, which is amazing. And then on the writers group side, yeah, I've been very lucky to be a part of several, both with screenwriters that are friends, um, and then I was a part of this amazing writers coffee shop where I would just go every day and hope that I could
Huh.
kind of join in the circuit of all these writers that would drift to tables. It was like a TV show in itself, and yeah, sure enough, after going there for a long time, I became friends with all of them. Everyone had their spot in their tables. And one of those writers, Matt Whitten, who's a wonderful novelist, invited me into his writers group, which is, I think it's one of the longest running writers groups. I don't think it could be, Ripley's Believe It or Not level, or whatever that thing for the awards for
Uh, Guinness Book of World
Guinness,
Records? Was
that's
that
it.
there
That's
you
it.
go.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
why that I don't know what the hell that came from. But yeah, the Guinness Book of World Records. Yeah, I don't know if it could be officially named, but they've been meeting for like I think almost 20 years.
Oh,
Um
wow.
and so they invited me in. It was a whole process. I had to be approved. They call themselves the Oxnardians. Nobody knows why because nobody's from Oxnard. It's literally so long that the mythology behind it has been lost to history. So, so they don't even know their origin story anymore. It's like an oral history of this writers group, and they're wonderful and they're brilliant. They're all published novelists, um, and it meets by a quorum every week if enough people have pages and enough people can show up. It was in person
Huh.
before COVID. Now it's on Zoom, and that's just you read your stuff out loud and everyone critiques and it's granular and it can be um and also it's accountability. I think you mentioned accountability with reading and for writing that is huge. So knowing every week that Friday 10 a.m. you're going to meet, better have another chapter done. or the next 10 pages of your book, and then trying to keep ahead of it. It's a really wonderful way of keeping yourself on task and motivated if you can't
Sure.
find that motivation yourself, which sometimes is very hard, or life just is difficult.
You mentioned critique, and I've seen that there's it seems like there's a lot of authors who struggle with negative feedback that they receive. Not, and when I say negative, I don't mean, you know, people trolling or people being unnecessarily mean or mean spirited, but just constructive criticism. And it sounds like you've had a lot of that with, the your experience in screenwriting. Was it hard for you to get used to that at the beginning when you first started writing and to get that critique, that negative critiques?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's the hardest thing people deal with, and in the veterans writing program that I do, there's a lot of things on how to take notes, and you
Mhm.
just have to embrace them. That's the only way. At first, I would be overwhelmed and stressed and take it personally. Never push back. That's never a good idea. Certainly try to explain, to have a dialogue to see where you're maybe going wrong. If one person has a note, like the adage is, okay, consider it, see if you agree with it or it sparks anything. If two people have the same note, three people have the same note, you better do it. Something's not working. Um, and as you go on, and there are so many notes, it's endless. It's more exhausting in screenwriting than anything. Um, and you just have to have the stamina to move through them and to know that the people you're sending it to you trust. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, over the years, I think the best part is embracing the feedback. And it hurts. It always hurts. You always think in your head it's perfect and you nailed it. And like, oh, it's going to make total sense. And then you send it to someone and they're like, the tone of this is terrible. You have to, I don't get any of it. But as long as you know that in the end, it's taking you where you need to go, it's a lot easier. And again, that's easier said than done. Um, but, um, I don't know. It becomes like a muscle of knowing which notes are helpful to you and how to use
Yeah.
them and how to get them, and that's just comes from. Yeah. I mean, I think the first couple projects I ever did, it's almost just an exercise to learn how to take criticism better than
Mhm.
anything. I mean, I think it's so rare that someone like writes one thing and then out of the gate, boom, it's the best. Um,
Yeah, I think the critique, when I took many years of photography, and every Friday we would sit around and put our favorite photo we did that week on the in front, and everyone would sit around and just rip it apart. And it's like you said, it's like, it's like your baby that you think is perfect, and then someone just says this is awful. But over the years, I think once you, like you said, you know what to pick and choose and what to, you know, what feedback to use and how to apply it is very important.
yeah, it's funny enough. That's actually what did photography, loved it. That's how I started as well. And that's actually some of the interesting writing advice came from Lois Lowry talking about how she's a photographer and uses lenses as a way to understand how to focus the reader's
Hmm.
attention the way she would through a camera, which I absolutely loved. Um, that was an incredible talk that she gave. But yeah, it's in the same with. I feel like I don't understand what it is about something written in a story that people feel like they are allowed to critique it so vociferously. like yes, and if it's photograph, I'm having memories of my teacher who I love, saying more magenta, like, oh, that's out of focus, like, it's so ugly it could be a modern art masterpiece. But it's like at the same, you had a little bit more flexibility with like, and that's a quote obviously from, he liked to quote Full Metal Jacket, um, among other things, but but it's like, in art you can have that sort of like everybody interprets it and all these things, but in writing, I don't know, it always elicits such strong opinions, and people get very adamant of like, no, you shouldn't have that character say or do that, or And you wouldn't say that to someone with a photograph. It might be more the technique or what. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, it's
but
very true, and I think a lot of it depends on the reader and their state of mind when they read something because they may be going through a difficult time that they just have a certain viewpoint on something and they don't like it or they don't like a character or whatever it may be, and it may just be their headspace at the time, and they come back later. Like I've read books before that I just could not get into, and then I come back to them later and thought, "Wow, this is pretty good." I just was not in the right headspace at the time to really sink into it.
yeah, I actually love that about how stories in particular, you can come back to them at different stages in your life and they have a totally different meaning. You have a totally different relationship to them based on where you're coming to them from. I find that
Mhm.
fascinating. Um, and by the way, not to diminish the idea of critique with photography or any art, I should say. I think all criticism, you have to learn in every artistic medium to or format to take critique, and it can be very brutal. So
It can be, yeah. Can be. I think writing is like you mentioned, it's a little different because there's so much that goes into it. There's the prose and there's characters and there's world building and there's plot and there's so much that goes into it that it's just a lot to keep. I don't know how you authors do it. It's insane. There's just so many things to get right, and then once you get the foundation and you get all the craft right, then you have to make it an appealing story for your audience.
yeah, I guess I don't try to think of it that way. If I do, I probably wouldn't ever write. I think the secret is I enjoy doing it, and I'm hoping people enjoy reading it. So I've seen writers who bring such emotional turmoil to writing where they're like, if you're not suffering, you're not creating something. And I don't know, that's sort of a horrendous way. I don't I mean, if you're suffering while you're doing it, why are you doing it? Um,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because in a way, when I'm writing the books, what you're just saying kind of makes me think about it in a different way, which is when I'm writing a script, I'm very conscious of all those elements and very conscious of, okay, am I keeping it short enough? Am I hitting the right notes that I need to hit to keep the page person moving? And when I'm writing it as a prose, it's almost more of like a meditation. It's just free flowing. It's just, I mean, I know where I'm going. So it's like, okay, I know this chapter is about this. I have a couple paragraphs that I wrote about it. But then it can almost just be like just an unconscious free flowing of thoughts, and you're with them in a more personal way that you are in a script where you're basically writing a blueprint. So
Mm.
so I think, yeah,
Eh,
I have been conscious of the all those elements when writing just in a different way.
if you didn't suffer, then you're not creating anything.
I
The Yeah. Just speaking of suffering and turmoil, you had mentioned you work with mental health, and I think the term mental health had used to be kind of a people would chuckle at it, but it's become more of an acceptable thing to say. It's something that you can talk about openly and not be ridiculed the way that it used to be in the past. So it's really good. But tell us about a little bit about your work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it has been invaluable in terms of any sort of creative writing that I've done, and with the company that I started with my brother and a professor of psychiatry. It's been over 15 years now
Oh
that
wow.
we started this business, bringing together mental health experts with professional actors to create simulations of mental health diagnoses. So it was guided by the DSM, it still is, and we work with everything from forensic nurses to psychiatrists and all the and social workers to create these realistic portrayals. It's like simulated therapy sessions, and we've created over 1,000 of those over the last 15
Oh
years,
wow.
and now we have continuing education courses and activities, and it's used by universities and hospitals and medical schools to help teach. But that process has been invaluable and fascinating. Like we did a whole series with forensic nurses, which I didn't even know was a thing. I didn't know that existed until we found ourselves working with them. And um, just from a story side, every one of these, I mean, it's just this idea of creating each case study is, you don't just have a diagnosis that you're trying to portray PTSD, bipolar,
Mhm.
schizophrenia, but it has to be the person. And you have to actually assemble a real life character that's grappling with this, and knowing how they're sitting in front, why they're sitting in front of this person that they're going to be talking to. And, and then just working with these people and hearing the stories. And like I was saying, the forensic nursing, the best description Teresa gave me that I work with was that's if like a CSI investigator's crime scene is a dead body, theirs is a living body. And so they have to
Mhm.
be they're working with these people in the worst days of their life with sexual assault, domestic violence, any sort of criminal act perpetrated against a person. And so then we did an entire series to help educate for sexual assault and domestic violence training. And so our job was to, create stories and bring those stories and
Mhm.
make it as realistic as possible. So that's the work that I do outside of writing, and I feel like it really cross pollinates. And that was actually for Heller High Winter. One of the things that I love doing was these gods, and I don't outwardly say it, and I don't want to, but having mental health struggles that they're dealing with, and incorporating that into these characters. Because I don't think anyone's immune. No one is. Everyone's dealing with something,
No.
but and the gods, it just makes it more amplified, whether there's some narcissism or some OCD. Um, and so I always find that like a really interesting exercise. If I'm trying to understand a character, it's putting them into therapy the way I do with and the work that I do, where we create characters and then literally simulate therapy sessions.
Mhm.
Um, and so then having any character have being forced to sit down and talk to someone and um, having those probative questions, and if they're not answering, why aren't they answering? What is that? What are they resisting? Being just and then just having that exercise has been a really interesting lens with which to go into the creative writing.
I think that's something especially in the technologically advanced, or I guess you could say, world we live in now with social media and the internet and everything else involved. We think of it as pulling ourselves together, but really, I think people feel more isolated than they did before in some ways because we don't have as much, that connection. So I think compassion is something that is really important that we're kind of losing the grip on. So it's great that you're helping people in that way, because I think it's harder and harder to find those genuine connections and to connect in those ways. I think even though we have all these methods of communicating, sometimes it's hard to go to be vulnerable like that and to ask for help or to reach out to people and offer your help.
Yeah, no, and that's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that's sort of a lot of the stuff. That's a lot of what I wanted to weave into the book, and especially the second book that I've been working on is this idea of just if the gods are struggling just as much as we are, how does that what does that look like and feel like? But yeah, I feel like it's this very disaffected age that technology has brought upon us, that we think it's bringing us all closer together, and it couldn't be pushing us further apart. And for the business symptom media, we created this basically Netflix for mental health for education, and the whole goal always from the beginning was building empathy. It's very hard to connect when you're just reading something on a page in a textbook, but creating a story and giving somebody, and that's obviously what all storytelling is about, connecting with somebody, um, that hopefully that builds better clinicians and more connection and more empathy from a provider to their patient. And also on a cultural level too, being able to expose people to different problems and issues that their upbringing for no fault of their own, maybe didn't expose them to, but to have just that extra bit of sensitivity and awareness of the other factors that someone's going through that maybe is it's behind the diagnosis or that medical screen that is put up, um, that's coming into play, whether it's religious or ethnic, and so being able to help do that has been very rewarding, and then yeah, I like to feel like that hopefully translates and cross pollinates into whatever writing I do, in some form or another. I don't know how it does. It couldn't. I can't put barriers up between those, but yeah, back to your point. Yes, the world that we live in now, for all the things that make this conversation possible, also has made people deeply anxious and deeply sad and deeply disconnected. Um, and not to make it always loop back into Hell or High Winter, but that's kind of what I loved about Hermes. Actually, when I examined him in the 21st century, he's a messenger without any more messages to deliver, and
Hmm.
how we're all chasing after followers now. Like I have to do it for the whole book thing, and it's exhausting and demoralizing in a lot of ways. And yet we're stuck on that wheel. We have to do it, or we think we have to do it. And the gods, when I thought of examining them and interpreting them, I kind of like this idea of what if worship was a drug, and
Hmm.
faith, as far as the gods see it, is market share. It's capital. Whoever has the most of it has the most power, has the most influence. And so for those that had it once and don't have it anymore, what does that mean to
Hmm.
them? How do they cope? How do they adapt or not cope, not adapt, which is how I wanted Hermes to be when we meet him. He's doing things and he's acting out. He was always at the bottom of the totem pole in his faith, which created its own um, psychological issues for him. Um, but then you put him into an age where no one cares, when that's all we're seeking is people to care about us. And how does that warp a mind, an immortal mind in my case?
Hmm.
Um,
That's super interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I love the different the different perspective on the modern world and technology and the we I can go on and on for hours about social media and the ways that it's negative, but it's like you said, it technology brought us together. Right? We wouldn't be having this conversation if not for it. But there's a lot, the different algorithms and the different platforms and the way that it kind of drives us to negative reactions, and it makes us feel inadequate in every way that is possible. And the it drives us into echo chambers where we don't have. Seems like we're losing the ability to be empathetic and to be understanding and be willing to see different viewpoints and opinions because we're so used to having our little bubble. And it's all done on purpose. I mean, these platforms are engineered to do that to us, and it's kind of wild. It's a strange time.
yeah, I mean, I don't, it's hard to think in any time in human history we've outsourced our ability to judge the world around us. Um, I mean, we seem to be. It kind of feels like, when you think of cattle being, I don't know what they're called, when they're sort of diverted to different chutes and to the slaughterhouse, and not that we're heading to the slaughterhouse, maybe we are, but the idea that somebody is able to direct all of our attention, and it is a drug. I mean, they're
Mhm.
there's the documentaries, there's plenty of that. There's articles, there's the people that have defected. I think that
Yeah.
probably is the right word, from these companies, defected to and won't let their children use it. That they are putting us into these silos and making it narrower and narrower for their own profit, at the expense of however many tens of thousands of years of how our brains and civilization and human connection worked, and it's being co-opted, and it's pretty terrifying as much as I'm guilty. I'm addicted to it all. But and yeah, I mean, I could go on and on about it too. I mean, even in dating and how much, you know, the idea of dating culture and how that evolved in the 20th century and then to this 21st century where we've outsourced the most important aspect of many of our lives to an algorithm that really doesn't care about connection. It cares about making money for the people that have set it
Mhm.
up, and how that has stunted our ability to find other people or what made us believe what is appropriate, um, and desensitizing us to another person who's out there vulnerable, seeking another person. And so much of that disconnect, it's scary, to
It
put it
is.
mildly.
Yeah, it is, yeah, and I think I don't know if it's equally as scary just yet, but I think it potentially is as scary as AI, and wanted to get your thoughts on AI in the author space and also the screenwriting space, and what you see the future with AI, what lies ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely not the expert on where the technology's going. I can just speak from my own personal experience with it, but um, it was fascinating to be on the picket lines with the Writers Guild, which I believe was the first union to ever um, picket, and for many reasons, but one of them and part of the platform was to s- to actually get ahead of it, which I think was is kind of a first. Usually, the Writers Guild has been chasing issues, whether it's DVDs or streaming, and this time it was AI out of creating intellectual property, which was fascinating to be walking and have that sense of mission of this juggernaut coming. And I can see how it's coming for so many jobs. I mean, I use it not for writing. I use it to help in like j- summarizing material. It's really for the podcast that I do for work. I can throw in an 80-page transcript and it can get me the summary of it like that. That's kind of
Yeah.
the areas where it's very helpful. Um, I have started, as people have suggested, using it for research or for AI for editing tools, editing and video, I should say, for audio. Um, and so, from everything that I've heard with people, it's kind of like those who can learn the language of AI can actually keep themselves relevant. It's sort of hard to, it's like the people that said, "I'll never use a calculator." Um, So I feel like it has its place. I completely object to it creating written material. It's also just garbage storytelling. It's all derivative. I don't think, it's like
Yeah.
you do that experiment and we were all doing it for a while and then we're like, "Oh, this is terrible." Um I you know, it's been helpful in terms of like summarizing a screenplay or writing a log line, which I hate writing log lines. I can spend all day and I never figure it out. And then it's like it spits out like 10 of them and you're like, "Oh, perfect. Now I can rearrange the words the way I wanted to." Um, but then story generation, it's never gonna, to me, I mean, unless it reaches that general intelligence that people were talking about, I don't know how it creates anything new. All it is
Mhm.
ingesting what the human race, our experience, and regurgitating something back to us based on that. It's just devouring. It's it's like the dog eating its vomit. It's kind of maybe I don't know. That's pretty awful visual,
No, that's
but
true. Yeah.
um, but I think it was someone that said like it's never going to walk in the rain. It's never gonna have that experience of actually living life. It's only taking everybody else's experience, so I don't think it would be hard for me to think it could generate the next new idea. Like, I would
Right.
think, like, could it be Jackson Pollock discovering the dripping paint on a canvas? You know? Um, that's the kind of thing I wonder if it could get there, and hopefully I would I would think that's what differentiates us from it. Um, but it's
Let's hope so.
Yeah. We're gonna find out whether we want to or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
was yeah.
oh, please go ahead. There's a
Oh no,
little
you
lag.
had mentioned oh sorry, you had mentioned the picket lines. I was happy to see the stand taken against AI. So but as a group, as you know, in the strike, that it was really forward thinking, and I think it was important to take that stand at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's was sort of terrifying what it would do in terms of cutting out the writers from generating ideas. The discussion when we were, pacing back and forth in front of Amazon for 4 hours, which that was actually my that was my picketing spot.
Hmm.
And I mean, ironically, I guess, oddly funny enough. The picket lines, by the way, were a lot of fun. Actually, it was not dreary. Picketing in LA with actors is not going to be, you know, um, a very grueling experience. It was actually very hilarious and
Hmm.
fun, and a lot of for writers. We were like, oh my god, we get to see other people and spend a
Yeah.
day with walking back and forth talking to other people. Um, but it's back to the actual point. The and then the listeners are thinking this is probably what reading his book is like.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, the idea, the fear with AI and generating ideas was, you could walk into an office with an executive and they say, "Hey, we have these like 10 great ideas. We'd love for you to work on one of them." And if it's just stuff that's spit out by ChatGPT or whatever, that not only, it's all going to be sort of derivative garbage, and it allows them to shortcut the writer. The writer still has to do all the work, but then they can cut the writer out of. Then the writer, that triggers sort of contractual things within the Writers Guild, where if the writer doesn't generate the idea, their pay is far less because they didn't come up with the idea themselves. But it's was like, imagine if some producer, some executive or studio could say like, "Hey, not us not knowing where the idea came from for something that was just generated with their like, hey, ChatGPT, give me a movie about two best friends that discover an alien. Give me 10 versions of that." And then they give it to a writer. The writer still has to do all the work, but then they're being told that they didn't actually come up with the idea. That's just one thing. Or we don't want to pay a writer, so let's just have ChatGPT rewrite it. Um,
Oh.
or whatever AI system. So there is already, I've heard people, this is anecdotal. It's as far as I know, it's not happened to me, where they're getting notes that obviously was AI generated. So the people
Hmm.
reading the scripts are just feeding it into a program to not do the work. I haven't
Wow.
experienced that, but that's kind of like teachers when they say like they have AI grade papers now, and it's like if those papers were probably written by AI, then who's learning at this point if it's just AI
Nobody.
grading
No one.
AI generated material? So, which I have heard that from teachers. Literally, I've heard that that's been happening.
No, that's depressing. That's really depressing.
Good, that was the takeaway I wanted for today. So,
No, it's well, hopefully that, I know people, an AI has its uses, and I was very against AI, but I mean, it's one of those things where you just can't. It's just the genie's out of the bottle. So I think using it responsibly, I hate to say using it responsibly like it's a drug or something, but knowing what to use it for, and not to take ideas, or not give people credit, or for research, for because I find it as like a search engine. Instead of going to Google, I'll go to ChatGPT and say, what's the weather like tomorrow, and it'll spit out all this information. And so it's useful, but I think in the creative sense, it's something we have to be careful with and use caution.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find it's helpful for if you're stuck on a word, can you give me,
Mhm.
all the words that are, yeah, it's like a research assistant. That's how I see it. The only way that I feel comfortable using it. And the research element is great. I'm trying to figure out this architectural style. Can you give me all the elements that go into this building and da 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 da? And then I never take it as face value. It's nice that it cites things now. And then I always go to the citation where it's like, okay, that might have been an hour plus of my time because I actually don't know what it's called, trying to figure out what it's called to then look it up, that it can
Mhm.
actually, you know, give me the architectural blueprint of, you know, a Buddhist temple from the 15th century. And then I can go and,
Yeah.
okay, that's the terms that I couldn't think of to now go and look it up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's important to double check your citations because there's lots of it can be incorrect pretty often. So
Oh, yeah.
double check your sources before you before you repeat the information you find on AI.
Yeah. No one
It's
wants to be
yeah,
the lawyer that had it write its brief and it just made up cases. That was,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Be careful with that. Yeah, it's scary. Uh, but with your experience in Hollywood and screenwriting, when you were writing Hell or High Winter, did you have a cast in mind that would be your if you could adapt it? Would did you have people in mind who would be this play each character?
I mean, for a time I did, and the writing process was so long that I think those actors have aged out of those roles. So, the ones that I was originally thinking of, um, and it is a really bizarre thing when for me, that is, that when I read a book, I don't think of actors. It's purely in my head. When I'm writing a script, I'm thinking of the cast my dream cast.
Mhm.
And it was an interesting experience writing the book. It felt very much like reading a book for me, where it was purely my own imagination in the world. So I never had a set cast in my head. Um, if you were to ask me with scripts, yeah, it's like so, I mean, I like to think of the closest comparison, um, to Hermes. But again, I was writing this before, because it was a very long process writing this book, is like Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds, but Hermes is a much more accessible, kinder, gentler human. Well, he's not human in my book, but it's that I was like, oh, that's kind of the tone of someone who's very, sarcastic and
Mhm.
funny and wisecracking and never taking anything seriously. Um, but I guess that would be the Deadpool is a little bit of Ryan Reynolds as a more exaggerated version of my character.
Sounds about right. That's Reynolds' shtick. So,
I mean, did you have? I'd be interested for somebody else reading it if they had something in mind.
oh no, I was just curious if when you were writing, if you had a certain faces or cast in mind, or if you did have a screenplay or you did have your ideal project, or was there anyone that you would really love to work with in Hollywood that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Oh, always the dream for me is Amblin Spielberg. That would be incredible. Um,
Huh.
I mean, just because I'm the biggest Spielberg fan growing up with his movies, and so yeah, that would be the dream come true. That's the manifesting coming in right
Yeah,
there.
you never know. Yeah, never know.
Yeah, from your lips to Hermes' ears, or
Let's make it happen. Maybe we'll get sued and we'll get in front of Spielberg. He'll hear about the lawsuit and he'll decide
right.
to give you a call.
Maybe if the book gets banned,
There you go.
that could
Yeah.
be the best
Yeah.
thing to happen to me if I can get my book on the banned book list. So I don't know if it would make enough people angry to earn the spot there, but
Oh, you never know. Well, I mean, people are angry about pretty much everything, so
yeah,
we have a chance. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But I did have a couple of questions for you before we wrap up. that I like to
Yeah.
ask my guests. The first one is, if the zombie apocalypse happened today, what would be your weapon of choice?
Oh, oh my God, I should be better prepared for this.
I should have told you, have your weapon of choice in mind before we record.
This is where you take out the very long pause between as I think about it. I am someone that I will just probably I'll call you later and I'll be like, no, I amend my answer. Um,
Hey, everyone does. Everyone
is
amends it.
is it a weapon of choice? Because I feel like there's never going to be a weapon good enough. I mean, it's not a weapon. It's my escape route. I would just get on a boat. Um, I don't know. I'm now thinking logically. Like if it's a gun, you're going to run out of bullets. If it's and
Yeah,
I don't have any aim. Um,
harpoon maybe if you're in a boat.
harpoon. Oh,
Yeah, that's a bit
that would be one
particular.
and done. That would be
You'd be in trouble.
yeah.
Yeah,
All I can think of is in terms of running. That's how I perceive you. That's how I get to my answer. It's like, wait, why am I fighting? I'm gonna get the hell out of here. So
so a good pair of running shoes would be yeah.
yeah. A good escape plan is my how I would fight back. Sorry, that's a cop out.
No, just to stay alive to fight another day.
Yeah.
The second question is: has there ever been a hobby or a thing that you were excited to try, but when you tried it, you did not enjoy it?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind, surfing. I
Hmm.
tried. Um, and I'm yeah, surfing or snowboarding. Again, I thought that'll be great, but then I don't have balance and it involves going downhill from heights, at least the snowboarding side. So yeah. So, yeah, I I don't have the core strength to do either of those things.
Yeah, snowboarding. I hear lots of horror stories about snowboarding and skiing and the injuries and the beating you take to learn how to do it properly, and just not interested.
I was I found out with both. I'm really good at falling, and
Yeah,
that was what I discovered. So,
yeah. In my years of mountain biking, I've learned to fall really well because I fall a lot.
oh
So
God, mountain biking, that nothing. Scares the hell out of me. I had
yeah,
to do it. I
yeah.
did. I went. I went mountain biking with some friends in the Arctic Circle that I went to visit, and we. That was yeah, mountain biking with an e-bike, and yeah, I was sore for weeks, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, yeah, it does that. It's yeah. Has some scars to prove it, but
I
my
hit
last
every
question to
rock.
you. Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry.
well,
Go
you
ahead.
always do, no matter what. You always hit every rock.
That it's the decision, the twisting and the turning, and the speed with which you just have to embrace the downhill part of it. And I
Oh yeah,
hesitate too much. It's the hesitation that kills me.
yeah. And if you brake too fast when you're going downhill or you have some speed, then you're not going to be a good time. So it's that letting go and just it's hard to change your mindset for sure.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. It's the letting go part.
Yeah, sink it.
that's where I'm that's where I fail.
Me too, many times over. But I'm a glut for punishment, I guess. But the last question I have for you is: do you have a favorite family recipe?
Oh, oh man. Um, we kind of only have one recipe, family recipe. I love to cook, and so I love trying new stuff, but um I guess I'll say this is going to sound so Jewish. It's the holiday brisket. Cuz literally it's like 100-year-old recipe. So, yeah, I mean, god, it sounds I'm like I'm mortified even saying it out loud on a podcast, but but that's
No,
like
it's
the only
yeah.
it's the only family recipe I think other than, that's uniquely the way my great grandmother did it. And so anyway, so that would be
That's actually
my pick.
it's actually been the answer for a few different people, so you're not the first one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
not the first time.
I mean, if you're, yeah, if you're interviewing authors, you're going to get a couple Jewish authors. And if you're going to ask
Yeah,
that question, you're going to get brisket every time. So,
yeah, I've had that a few times actually. So yeah, you're not the first. So
yeah.
it's not that unusual. Yeah. I actually did have one more for you. I almost forgot,
Oh,
which is my favorite question. I don't know how I forgot this, but what was your first job, and what did you learn from that experience?
oh, my first job. Um, hmm. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's like your first job, because my first job was working for my dad in the summers at his law office.
Hmm.
Um, and so it would be hard pressed for me to like give life lessons from that experience, other than maybe like don't be in the filing cabinet room on the third floor of an old building during an earthquake. Like, like that's
Oh wow, it's good
like that
advice.
was
Yeah.
no, but not anything practical. Because that was a scary moment. But Um, I think if moving past that, I guess then my first job was helping to teach, and I would
Hmm.
help teach summer school, and then wound up teaching photography and digital photography and film and media. And man, these are good questions. And um, I mean, other than the typical things that you would learn with responsibility and all those, the the stock answers that you would give to that question. Um, I think for teaching, it was a lot about letting go. And that's very funny after talking about letting go with on a mountain bike. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it's like things like I hate speaking in public, and I would have to go in front of a class and like help instruct and do things. And there was just that idea like you just have to do it. You just get up there and you just you do it no matter what the outcome is, and you get better at it.
Hmm.
And so um sometimes you don't have a choice. You just have to find the ability to make it happen. Um, and so I don't. I'm hoping that is somewhat of a coherent answer. But the idea of you have to teach these students a lesson, and I was terrified of the idea of speaking in front of a class full of 13-year-olds, which I think is the most terrifying thing you could probably ever do in your life. Um, and
It sounds horrible.
It is. It's as horrible
Yeah,
as it sounds. It's just teachers are saints. I don't know how they do it.
they are. Yeah.
And yeah, and then it was just okay. I have this is my job and it's my role, and it doesn't care if I'm terrified of this circumstance. You have to just show up and make sure they understand this. So, so yeah, I think that was probably what I learned from teaching for the first time, which is funny because now then I do it as a volunteer. So
Yeah. It's I think it's interesting the first job people have and the life lessons they take from that experience, whether it's for a couple of days or for years, the lesson they take throughout their life and how it affects
yeah,
them. Yeah. Yeah. It's good
yeah,
stuff.
um, yeah. Well, and thank you so much for having me here. I feel like this is the natural conclusion. Maybe I jumped the gun, but it. you- so,
Oh no, I was about to thank you for making time and telling us about High Winter and your process and all of your experience. And I think we could go on for hours about a lot of different topics we covered, but whenever you'd like to come back and chit chat, just let me know.
Oh, absolutely. It was really wonderful, and thank you for indulging all of my random tangents and zigzagging through my life. And um, I just appreciate you're really wonderful at at hosting and drawing people out with your questions and the space that you create. So thank you
Oh,
for having
thank you.
me.
Yeah. No, yeah, thank you. And like we talked before we started recording, is I want you to talk. So that's so hopefully it wasn't too awkward because I'm the same way when I'm on the other side. It's weird for me to answer questions and be the guest. So I know it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, I mean you just make it so um create such a relaxed atmosphere that you make it easy y- to actually, yeah, to be a part of this conversation. It was, yeah, it didn't feel like a podcast. I felt like I was just being able to talk with someone about things that I am very passionate about and I love. So it's, thank you for you know having that ability.
Oh, that's the best compliment. Yeah, that's just want people to relax and just like we're sitting around having coffee or a beer or whatever, and just talking. So glad to hear it. But
Yeah.
for anyone looking for Hell or High Winter or looking to connect with you, where's the best places to find you?
Oh, yeah, I'm on Instagram. However painful that process is for me, not posting just travel photos, which is what I used to use it for. And that's Andrew Rubin 77. Um, again, because I created this before I thought I would have a book that was published. So yeah, I'm on Instagram, and hellerhighwinter.com is the book's website, and it's available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, and all the places. And I really hope people will pick up a copy. It's it's there's it's hard to get out there as a debut author, and you're at an indie press, and so it's like every reader and every person that picks up your book, it feels like a miracle, and there's so much gratitude that someone is interested enough to open the pages of your book. So I hope people do.
Yeah, go check it out and read it, and don't forget to leave a review.
Yeah,
And
that's
the reviews
super
help a
important.
lot. So yeah,
Oh, please, yes. And if you can then do that other miracle, which is write your opinion on the internet. And
yeah, yeah.
I would really
It's
appreciate it.
yeah,
So
it helps a lot. So
help
thanks again
help
for
yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So like I said, anytime you'd like to come back, just let me know and we'll make
Oh,
something happen. We'll think
for
of some fun
sure.
topics. Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks everyone for listening. And thanks again, Andrew, for coming by. And we'll talk to everyone very soon.